The Arab Sugar Daddy and the Beautiful Indian Girl, a novel by Dr. Ahmed. This is a one-sided love story between a rich old Saudi man and a beautiful poor Indian girl. It has been written in English and translated into Arabic by Dr. Ahmed. It is an intriguing epic story narrated in 6 books. Book 1. The Arab Sugar Daddy falls in love with a beautiful poor Indian girl. Copyright. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief passages from the review for printing in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. All characters in this novel are fictitious, and any resemblance to real people, living or dead, is purely coincidental. Chapter 50. Rayhana meets the strict Arab copra woman. The Saudi wealthy business tycoon, Sheikh Faiz bin Ahmed, has 4 huge mansions and 4 wives. In each opulent residence, he has 1 wife, children, maidservant, security guard, domestic animals, 1 bathroom and 1 toilet. It is imperative that each Muslim's house must have 2 separate washrooms, men and women, just like a public washroom. The bathroom has to be separate from the toilet because it is also used for religious ablution. All 4 of his wives are older than Rayhana. The 4th wife and the youngest is 32 years old, and she was a divorcee before he married her. He married her, the only divorcee in his harem, because she is the daughter of a very wealthy Saudi man. Half of his business profits come from the father of his last wife. When they arrived at Sheikh Ahmed's house, the chauffeur came around quickly and opened the door for Rayhana and her small daughter. He then stretched out his arms to Ifat. She reached up and he carried her out of the car. This act of kindness is not lost, as Rayhana has observed how he is caring and lovingly carrying her little daughter. From the time they met, she started to like his friendly nature. The only thing that marred her impression of him was a remark he made after the sheikh had exited the car and gone to the mosque. He commented, "Sheikh Ahmed loves her so much he cannot think straight. And if she is a smart woman, she can make more money than she can count numbers." His remark disturbed Rayhana, and she was quick to respond that she was not interested in making money in that way. She also reminded him that Sheikh Ahmed was old enough to be her grandfather. After Rayhana's sharp remarks, the Pakistani decided he had better keep his opinions to himself. A seed of suspicion, however, is now planted in Rayhana's mind, and she thought there had to be a reason the old man must have gone to such great lengths to hire her, and maybe it was more than her good looks, and because she is Muslim woman like him. Upon reaching the house of wife number 4, she has consciously dismissed what her mind is slow to acknowledge. Their arrival at the front gate was greeted by a very dark-skinned night guard, wielding the muzzle of a machine gun and a large dog. The guard is a Sudanese, and he appears to Rayhana as if he has colored his face and hands with black paint. Rayhana and her daughter began to tremble when they saw the black Negro guard and the large dog. The chauffeur saw the fear in their eyes and told the guard to take his huge brute aside. The guard held his big dog back until the Pakistani chauffeur took the Indian woman and her daughter inside the house. As soon as they stepped inside the compound, Rayhana saw a woman standing halfway between the gate and the house. She is tall and slender, and her face is somewhat contorted. With her arms on her hips, she looked as though she was ready to put up a fight. The chauffeur approached the woman and greeted her politely in Arabic. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Ahmed." The angry woman remained silent. "Madam, this is your new Indian maidservant, Rayhana Khan, and this is her daughter, Ifat." Rayhana noticed the woman's face had an angry look. She started to feel like she was not going to have an easy time working there in the house of her sponsor's wife. She's going to have to deal with a lion masquerading as a dog, a terrorist like black Negro guard, and a woman as dangerous as a cobra. "Where did you come from?" Mrs. Ahmed asked angrily. Immediately, the chauffeur resumed his translator role, giving Raihana her first conversation with the angry woman of the house. "India. What kind of work have you come to do here?" "Anything you want me to do, I will do for you, madam." Mrs. Ahmed had already been informed by her husband about the new maidservant. Sheikh Ahmed called her while they were on their way back from the beauty salon and informed her about her new maid's help. "Follow me," said Mrs. Ahmed. Raihana and her daughter followed the skinny Arab woman while the Pakistani driver remained stationary in his place. The Saudi woman stopped, turned her back, and shouted at the chauffeur to come with them. She treats him as if he is her slave and not her husband's foreign chauffeur. Following a few steps behind the tall Arab woman, Raihana began to admire the beauty of the large house. As they passed through the opulent rooms, Raihana hoped that she and her daughter might be given one of those rooms to stay in. They continued to walk until they reached the last room. Entering the room, Raihana recognized the room as the kitchen. Mrs. Ahmed stood in the middle of the kitchen and put her hands on her waist. She pivoted around to face Raihana and began listing her instructions when she discovered something about her new maidservant, which had escaped her observation earlier. "Where were you both before you came here?" shouted the Arab woman angrily. "I was in the Filipino women's beauty salon," answered Raihana frankly. "So he took you to the beauty salon before he sent you here?" Before Raihana could respond, Mrs. Ahmed shot off a new round of questions. "Where is your luggage? Where is your daughter's bag?" "We have no bags, and we have no clothes." "How did you travel from India to Saudi Arabia without clothing or luggage?" Raihana remained silent, and the chauffeur decided it would be best to keep silent too. "So, my husband met you on the street and decided to hire you as a maidservant for me. He then took you to the women's beauty salon before sending you here as if you are a bride who came to spend her honeymoon in my residence. Madam, your husband met me in Bombay City. He asked me to come to his country and work as his maidservant. Some bad men stole my bag and belongings when my daughter and I arrived in this city. Well, I will talk to my husband and find out more about you when he gets home. Right now, I want to give you your cleaning instructions. First of all, you must know that I am an extremely strict woman. I hate immoral dirtiness and physical filthiness. Especially, I detest immoral behaviors." Mrs. Ahmed paused and surveyed Raihana from top to bottom. She raised her voice even louder with no attempt to disguise her anger and hot temper. Her voice resounded against the walls, and it is as though she is crying inside. "First, you must know there are males living in the household. I have 2 sons and my husband. One son is 16 years old, and the other is 14 years old. They are good children and are doing well in their studies. If I perceive any immoral behavior on your part, I will beat you and wipe your dirty face on the ground. I know you are not an ugly woman, and you might try to use your beauty to entice the good men in my house and make them commit adultery with you. I did not like your face from the moment I laid eyes on you. If any man in this house smiles at you, you are not to smile back. If he calls you to come inside his room, do not enter. Keep yourself at a distance from them. I will never tolerate any kind of love affair between any one of the noblemen in this house and a lowly maidservant. If I happen to leave the house for any reason, don't be surprised if I lock you up inside your room with a big padlock and keep you confined until I return home." "Okay, madam. Now I am going to dictate to you my laws and your duties in this house." Mrs. Ahmed eased herself into an armchair and placed her right leg on her left knee, as if she were a great sultana or a princess of the royal family. The briefing of the duties began. She has not asked Rayhana or her daughter to sit. Even the chauffeur is standing on his feet while translating the conversation between the noble Saudi woman and her new maidservant. Law number 1. You have to be in the kitchen from 6 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. Law number 2. You are not allowed to sit on any chair or couch during working hours. You are also not permitted to either watch TV or listen to the radio during working hours. Law number 3. You have to cook and prepare breakfast, lunch and dinner, wash the clothes, bed sheets, pillow covers and tablecloths. You will clean all of the dishes and other utensils, sweep and mop the rooms and hallways, water the plants, iron the clothes and do whatever else I require of you to do. After she finished telling her new maidservant the laws and regulations, the noble Arab woman went to every room in her huge mansion and gathered all the clothes, bedsheets, pillow covers, tablecloths, etc., and then ordered her Indian maidservant to commence her duties. When Rayhana entered the women's washroom and saw the huge pile of clothes, she reasoned within herself that if she worked continuously without let-up, she would not be able to finish half of the laundry in even a week. When she used to work in the homes of rich families in India, no family had ever asked her to wash such a large heap of clothes and laundry at one time. In most Indian homes in Bombay, the rich people have washing machines that make it easy for Rayhana to wash their laundry. Mrs. Ahmed has no washing machine. There are only 2 oversized sinks, and she expected her new Indian maidservant to use her bare hands to wash the entire stockpile of dirty clothes and laundry. She told her to stand on her feet for many hours and do the laundry. When Rayhana protested, the noble Arab woman threatened to kick her out of the house at once and never allow her to set her foot back in again. Rayhana brought her daughter Ifat inside the washroom with her and asked her to sit nearby as she reluctantly began washing the mounds and mounds of soiled laundry. She washed non-stop for 3 hours. Then, through her Pakistani interpreter, Mrs. Ahmed came and ordered her to go to the kitchen to start preparing dinner for the members of the noble family. Rayhana felt a great weight lifted off her shoulders. She got up immediately and headed towards the kitchen, followed by her little daughter Ifat. When she reached the kitchen, she noticed a big tray with many plates and cups. In every step of the dinner preparation, Mrs. Ahmed is screaming at Rayhana. 20 minutes have been wasted in rebuking, correcting and shoving the maidservant for her many errors and mistakes. Then the noble Saudi woman told her new Indian maidservant to wait for a few minutes and bring the dinner tray to the dining hall. Mrs. Ahmed felt it was below her dignity to be seen by her husband and 2 sons while she was walking with a lower-than-dirt foreign maidservant. Waiting for those few minutes to pass, Rayhana tried to straighten the kitchen. The 3 hours she spent in the washroom left her with bad pain in her back. Hunched over, she carried the heavy tray to the dining hall. The weight of the many plates and cups aggravated her back and caused her to bend forward in posture. Her position is particularly appealing to the males of the household. If she approaches them, they would be able to see her 2 healthy big breasts clearly through the big opening collar of her dress around her neck. If she turned her large backside toward them, they could see her dress accentuating her hips and buttocks from the wetness of washing clothes and dishes. She appears like a sexy girl who jumped in the swimming pool fully clothed and came out. It is the new maidservant's good fortune that all these revealing temptations escaped the attention of this extremely strict Arab Muslim woman, or she would have been beaten mercilessly and her tight dress snatched out of her body. In its place, she would have been forced to put on one of those black coffins, which are called abaya and niqab. This short dress that stuck to the body of the beautiful and sexy young woman had been purposely chosen by the pimp Aslam Ali Khan to make Rayhana Khan look sexier to her Saudi buyer. The sex-cannibal deviant, Sheikh Hamza bin Khalid. This extremely sexy dress is what Indians call a hugging dress. Chapter 51. To be a beautiful woman is not a crime. In the meantime, while waiting to have their dinner in the dining hall, Sheikh Ahmed, his noble wife, and their 2 teenage sons are seated at the huge table. The sons sat side by side, facing their parents. "How is your new maidservant doing in her household duties?" asked Sheikh Ahmed happily. "I am not happy to have her here in this house," Mrs. Ahmed replied angrily. "What is wrong with her? She is young and strong. Surely she's going to be a great help to you." "I'm not worried about her strength or her age. I don't like her face." "What did you say, Mama?" shouted the 16-year-old son. "Don't tell me you have brought an ugly face of a foreign woman into the house again." "Papa, please don't tell us you have brought another maidservant that looks like a monkey. I'm still having nightmares just thinking about that last ugly maidservant you brought to work here. I cannot believe that ugly girl has gone for good," said the 14-year-old. "Where are you getting them from? It seemed to me you brought them from the zoo. The first woman looked like a chimpanzee, the second like a dog, the third like a monkey, and this one I'm sure will look like a gorilla," said the older son. "Why don't you just get a girl with a normal human face?" said the youngest son. "Why do you guys always bring maids from Africa? Can you get, even once, a good-looking Arab maid from Lebanon or a beautiful girl from a country like India?" said the eldest son. "Khalid and Tariq," shouted the strict noble wife, "I am your mother, and I know what is best for you. I chose the previous maidservants from Mauritania, Tanzania, Somalia, and Sudan, 1 girl from Zanzibar in Kenya. The last woman was an Abyssinian from the Oromo tribe in Ethiopia. They were all good Muslim women and used to work hard for me. I had not seen anything bad from them. Moreover, they were deeply moral women and very honest, and none of them had stolen a single rial from the house. It was because of your constant quarrels with them they all ran away from the house. Besides, your father used to harass them a lot, and many times he had beaten them and abused them in any possible way. Mama, please forget about those previously ugly maidservants and tell us what kind of new girl you have brought now," asked Khalid. "This time your father has chosen a maidservant from India, and I don't like her face because it doesn't qualify her to be a maidservant at all." Before the sons could pry their mother further with questions and explanations, the new, unwanted maidservant entered the dining hall. They first saw the big thing she was carrying with both hands, followed by a face that impressed them. Their eyes are fixated on each step she makes, and they are staring at her beautiful face and sexy, half-visible big breasts. By the time the new maidservant made it to the table, the 2 teenage boys were already on their feet. Khalid, the first to recover his composure, rushed behind her to pull up a chair, gesturing for her to sit. He sneaked a glance at her large backside and felt an electric rush of excitement run up his spine. By the time he notices the wet dress clinging to her big buttocks, he is having an erection, and his phallus is standing like a stick in a tent inside his Arab jilbab. His brother reached out to relieve the lovely Indian maidservant of the huge food tray and repeated the gesture for her to sit down. The maidservant understood this kind of consideration and gladly sat in the chair. Hoping to gain favors with the beautiful new maidservant, the brother then proceeded to pile a plate full of food and offer it to her, and ask her in Arabic to begin enjoying her dinner. The strict mother could not tolerate this, and became fed up with the unacceptable behaviors of her 2 noble sons. The new maidservant sat down, and the son served her a portion of food. The extremely outraged noblewoman could not stand it any more. She went from irritated to madwoman too dangerous to murderous. "Get up, stupid Indian girl," screamed Mrs. Ahmed. "You are here to serve us and not to be served by us. Have I not told you that your place is in the kitchen? How dare you sit here at this table?" Rehana did not understand one single word, but jumped out of her chair as if she had heard the hissing and rattling of a rattlesnake beneath her seat. She does not need to know Arabic to interpret the angry Arab woman meant to insult her for breaking one of her strict social laws. and she instantly flew headlong into the kitchen. "Have I not told you, Sheikh Ahmed, that this Indian girl is not suitable as a maidservant? You have seen with your own eyes the effects of her face on your sons. If you want to destroy their good manners, then let her stay here." "My beloved wife," said Mr. Ahmed, "this woman is a poor Indian Muslim. She met me in Bombay and begged me to help her to come to Saudi Arabia and work as a maidservant at my house. She is widowed and has no one except her little daughter." "Then don't blame me if she corrupts your sons." "Mama, how can she corrupt us? She looks so innocent," said Khalid. "Yes, Khalid is right. She looks like an angel," said Tariq. "How do you know what an angel looks like? Have you seen an angel before?" asked the mother. "No, Mama, but today I think I have seen an angelic face. See, they have started calling her an angel, and tomorrow they will be calling her our bride." "They are just teasing you, my dear wife. I know they are good boys, and they know their limits. Mama, we will treat her as our sister who was born in our house." "You are a good boy," said Sheikh Ahmed to his son Tariq. "I will hold you entirely responsible if anything wrong happens in this house because of this Indian woman. I'm certain that nothing bad will happen. To be beautiful is not a crime." The last words of Sheikh Ahmed caused his wife to get up from the table without eating her dinner. She then went into the kitchen. There she found the new maidservant sitting with her daughter while both eating their meals. In a short time, Rayhana has developed a petrifying fear of this strict Arab woman. Whenever she sees her or hears the voice of the Cobra woman, she feels this evil woman who is possessed by demons is trying to possess her soul too. Then the hairs of her body became bristled up, and she began to shake and sweat uncontrollably inside. The strict Arab woman screamed at her Indian maidservant in Arabic. Rayhana did not understand what had been said to her, but she dashed up and ran to the washroom, leaving her daughter in the kitchen. She resumed washing the stacks of laundry, and after about an hour, the Cobra woman came and grabbed her by her hand and dragged her back to the kitchen. She pointed at the dozens of dirty dishes, cups, spoons, forks, and knives. Rayhana understood and began cleaning them. After she finished cleaning the plates and cups, the Cobra returned, grabbed her by the wrist, and took her back to the washroom. In stone silence, Rayhana spent many hours again washing the laundry in the washroom until the flesh of her hands became white and numb. Her daughter fell asleep nearby in the washroom. It was 10:30 p.m. when Rayhana finished washing the laundry and left the washroom. With another crick in her back, she carried her sleeping daughter, but she was not able to stand up straight. Her back is completely bent over. Her feet felt as though their flesh and bones had completely fallen flat, and her head was dizzy. Her stomach was empty, and she felt nauseous. The strict Arab woman did not allow her to finish eating her dinner. After she finished her washing, Rayhana used her hand and pointed it to her mouth and empty stomach, indicating that she needed some food to eat, but the strict woman refused to allow her to eat again. She believed her rebellious Indian maidservant had broken one of the ironclad laws by sitting in the dining room with the noble family and trying to eat with her masters. Due to the many hours of difficult work and hunger, Rayhana could not be able to stand on her weakened feet without supporting herself against the wall. The weight of her sleeping daughter on her shoulder made it almost impossible for her to walk. Nevertheless, the Cobra woman appeared like a demonic haunt out of nowhere and confronted her just outside the washroom. She took hold of her hand and began to drag her toward a storeroom. The new maidservant then understood that the storeroom was to be their sleeping room. Without saying goodnight or uttering a word, the noble Muslim woman locked the door of the small storeroom where there was no way out, as if it is a dungeon. She then placed a huge padlock on the door and took the key with her. She is afraid one of the noble males of her holy family might come at night and give the maidservant a few Saudi riyals to commit adultery with her, and bring great disgrace to the noble family of Sheikh Ahmed. The righteous wife does not care if the new maid and her young daughter burn inside in the event of a fire or bleed to death in the event of an accident. They do not have a phone or mobile phone to contact the police or any family member if they are faced with a dangerous situation resulting from a fire or bleeding. The strict Saudi woman left her 2 Indian female slaves to face a terrifying night in a small dark room filled with rats, cockroaches, lizards and mosquitoes. Rayhana felt the movement of the venomous snake of the Arabian cobra woman fading into the distance. The stern Saudi wife walked away as if she were a high-security prison guard, locking up the 2 newly arrived female prisoners. Rayhana looked around their new abode, noticing broken furniture, old toys, and some unknown equipment. It's ridiculously small and has a terrible smell. And there is a dim light. Her small hut in the Dharavi neighborhood of Bombay is larger and better than this small storeroom in Jeddah. Mice and mosquitoes make enough noise to wake corpses in their graves. Rayhana is not bothered by mosquitoes because her hut in Dharavi slum is infested with nocturnal vampires, but she has a pathological fear of mice. She believes that mice and rats will eat human flesh if they are hungry enough. There is a small single bed. The mother Rayhana put her sleeping daughter Ifat on the bed and sat next to her to watch. She found a knob and turned off the dim light. The small warehouse has no windows. So, as soon as she turned off the light, the storeroom became as dark as a tomb. As her fear of mice increased, she crossed her legs on the bed. Out of sheer fear, she did not dare to let her legs dangle. Despite her fatigue, she struggled to stay awake, but she quickly lost the battle, and the Muslim mother fell asleep next to her Indian daughter as if she were drugged. Chapter 52. The Arab Masters and Their Modern Foreign Slaves. In this third world country, rich people treat the poor worse than they treat slaves. The rich are free to do as they please. The murder of the foreign household maidservant is easily solved with a bribe to set things straight. If rape occurred, a little money would more than solve the problem. Everyone is up for sale, including judges and medical doctors. You could abuse the poor foreign workers for a price, and it would be as though nothing ever happened. Not only is there corruption and fraud in the justice, medical, and financial institutions, but religion is an added protection that further empowers the rich. Whether compensating authorities to get away with a crime or rewarding a rape victim to keep her mouth shut, it is a corrupt system operating behind a closed society. You could even buy the Wizard of Oz behind the Iron Curtain. In the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, most of the unfortunate sentenced to stoning every Friday are women. According to their law, it is easy to prove adultery in the case of a woman, but not so easy for the man. A pregnant woman is by no stretch of the imagination. Her pregnancy is the result of a sexual liaison, since birth control pills and condoms are illegal and impossible to get. It is assumed an unmarried woman has committed adultery once pregnant for whatever reason, which explains the gender bias. Also, there is another method for proving adultery on the part of a woman. If a woman is accused or suspected of adultery or immorality, the court would issue something called Form Number 8. The accused unmarried girl or a married woman would be sent to the hospital and her vagina would be examined by a female doctor. The female doctor's job then is to ascertain if the accused is a virgin. An unmarried girl who has lost her virginity is deemed to have committed the crime of adultery or some sort of premarital sex. If she happened to be a married woman, then the female doctor would take a swab to test for semen. If semen is found in her underwear or her private parts, then she has committed adultery with a man other than her husband. This second method should not be confused with a DNA test. None of the third world countries is obligated to conduct DNA tests except India. But the important question is how the female doctor would know the semen is not of her husband. This essential question, only God can give an answer to it on the day of judgment. Those in first world countries have trouble understanding this problem because they have largely closed the huge gap between the rich and poor and those who have not. In Western countries, religion does not dictate state law in every aspect. Opposition to religious norms is not criminalized. No one gets stoned for adultery, whether married or unmarried. No one loses a hand for theft. In the petrodollar countries, most of the Arab citizens are extremely filthy rich. The poor comprise migrant workers who leave their impoverished countries to come and work for rich Arabs. Their Arab masters, who euphemistically called employers or kafil, take advantage of their situation, which gives them virtual carte blanche. Raihana is one such person, treated by the rich as subhuman and untouchable, yet not a female slave or a Hindi outcast woman. A dog in the house of her Arab employer is better fed and gets better treatment than the people in the slum huts of India, Raihana's country. The storeroom she has been allowed to sleep in is much bigger than the shanty hut that her family members are living in, like sardines in a tin or eggs squashed in a small box. Rehana began her second day in the kitchen, and the holy, righteous and noble wife forced her to go from room to room and from passage to passage, sweeping, mopping, dusting, organizing furniture, and a whole host of other heavy chores. At that time, there are no men in the house. The two teenage sons are at school, and Sheikh Ahmed went to one of the homes of his other 3 wives, as did his Pakistani chauffeur. The second day saw Rehana's daughter become an unpaid maidservant. The Cobra woman gave the little daughter Ifat some petty work to do too. Rehana, simple and naive, does not know her rights and allows her daughter to become an unpaid child servant. Before Rehana came to work in the house of a noble rich family, Sheikh Ahmed used to spend one day at each wife's home. According to Sharia law, a polygamist is supposed to treat his wives equally. If he has sex with his first wife one day, he's obligated to sleep with his second wife on the second day, the third wife on the third night, and so on. After that, he would come to the first wife, and the cycle would repeat itself. Imagine a man is supposed to have sex with his 16-year-old wife, and tomorrow must have sex with his 60-year-old wife. Good on paper, but in reality, every polygamist husband is a dirty cheater. No man can have the same passion and sexual desire for his old wife, who is 60 years plus, as he has for his teenage wife, who is 14 or 17 years old. According to his biography, the Prophet Muhammad was more than accomplished with his women than just about any Muslim man alive then or now. He had 9 wives and 2 slaves or jariyah. He used to sleep with every one of his 9 wives daily. His biography said that he would have sexual intercourse with all of his 9 wives in a single hour. Imagine a man having sex with 9 women in 60 minutes. A wife every 6 minutes. The hadiths record that he would have sexual intercourse with his 9 wives while washing his private parts only once. I do not think this is something to be proud of, and washing up after each session would probably leave the wives with less than 4 minutes apiece. Even so, Muslim imams consider it an honor and are proud to relate this story of their prophet having sex with 9 women in 1 hour and only 1 washing. If you ask them how an upright, normal human being could have sex with 9 females in 1 hour time, or do something that even a sex maniac or an animal could not do, they will tell you that their prophet is unlike any other normal human being. But he had been given by Allah the power of 40 men. This might answer the question of normality, but I do not think it would even begin to touch on the question of morality. Even the great King Solomon, with more than 1,000 wives, could not accomplish this feat. According to the ancient Mosaic law, he could only sleep with 1 wife, and after washing remained unclean until evening. The second day for Rehana is much better than the first. She does not need to spend as many hours in the washroom washing clothes and doing other laundry. Her duties that day are cleaning and preparing food. She has not prepared a whole meal unsupervised because she has not yet learned how to cook Arabic food. After 2 uneventful days under the Sheikh's roof, something terrible befell Rehana on the third day. Rehana went to the washroom to take a bath, as the Cobra woman had ordered her to wash her dirty body. Rehana has not taken a bath for 3 days. She is under the impression that she is not allowed to take a bath in the washrooms of the noble family. She picked up that notion from her experience keeping houses for the rich Indians she used to work for in India. Wealthy Indians will never allow their men servants or maid servants to use their toilets. If their servants felt the need to go, then it was off to the nearest public washroom. In Bombay, most of the public washrooms are in the local train stations. There are also public washrooms in crowded chawl places and slum areas. There is nothing in the entire world filthier than the public washrooms in India. Since her arrival, Rehana and her daughter have not used the women's washroom except for urgent emergencies. On her third day, the holy and noble Saudi woman discovered that her dirty maidservant had not washed her body or her clothes since her arrival. This discovery prompted the dragging of Rehana from the kitchen to the bathroom. Gestures are made in the direction of the faucet and the tub. She made Rehana take off her outer dress, and she threw it in the sink and turned water over it. She tugged and pulled at her underdress to instruct her to wash it as well. Signing her intent, she made it known to Rehana that she had to spend at least 2 hours washing off the accumulated filth on her body and washing her dirty clothes and stinky underwear. That is done. She waits inside the washroom until her clothes dry before coming out in clean, dry clothes. And she pointed to the curtain rod above the tub to be used for drying up her washed clothes. Then she pointed to the daughter who had followed them into the washroom and said she was to repeat the process for her also. Chapter 53. An Indian beautiful heroine taking a bath. As soon as the Cobra woman went out of the washroom, Rehana told Ifat to wait in the kitchen until she finished her bath. And then she was going to give her bath too. When little Ifat left the women's bathroom, the 22-year-old Rehana removed all of her clothes and stood bare naked. When she stripped off all her clothes, she walked toward the mirror and looked at her image. She began to turn around and look at her reflection in the mirror. She felt pleased with the full figure standing before her and the shapeliness of her naked body. Rehana has never seen such a huge, full-sized mirror before. For the first time she could see her entire body, and she liked it. She felt shy and covered her face with her hands. Then she remembered her bath. She walked toward the tub and looked at it. She had never seen a tub, except in an Indian movie she had watched with the love of her life, the handsome Jamal Khan, at the Eros movie theater in downtown Bombay. In the movie, she saw the beautiful Indian heroine taking a bath in a tub, and that gave her some idea of what she is supposed to do while she is bathing herself in the house of her Arab masters. Then the fully naked, lovely Indian maidservant, Rehana Khan, stepped carefully inside the tub and turned on the tap. The warm water began to fill the tub. While the water was running, she started to check all the perfumes and makeup bottles on the shelves. She opened each bottle and smelled its scent. Each one she liked, each one she sprayed some of it on her naked body and long hair. After that, she picked up something that looked like soap powder and emptied half of it into the water. She shook the water with her hands until it looked like it was covered with white bubbles and cotton balls. When done, slowly, she immersed herself in the warm water. She felt a wonderful sensation. She became as happy as a female child. Then she began to imitate what she saw the heroine doing in the movie. She stretched her legs, lifted them, and brought them down again. She lifted her legs again and opened them. She separated her legs as wide as she could. She enjoyed the slight pain she felt in the area around her private parts. She has done this exercise many times until she could not do it anymore. Then she began to play with her hands and breasts. She held her two breasts with both her hands, jingled them, and fondled them. Rehana has become naughty and stood up while naked and did many naughty things. With soap suds covering parts of her body, she went to the mirror and began to dance and tease her image. She even fought against her image in the mirror, as if she were in a boxing fight. She turned around and began to dance with her backside facing the mirror. Then the sexy girl Rehana bent forward, looked at the mirror, shook her large backside, and teased the imaginary audience who thought they were looking at her big buttocks on the big silver screen at a movie theater. After that, she turned around and showed them her pussy that is covered by her black pubic hair. She then stuck out her tongue and teased them again. She told them, "None of you can get my sexy pussy and enjoy having sex with me except my handsome lover Jamal when he marries me." She sang and told them, "No touching, but only seeing." This is an Indian song in a Bollywood great hit movie which is called My Name is Sheila. In that wonderful movie, the beautiful and sexy film actress Katrina Kaif sang and danced in it. The lovely and sexy Rehana likewise enjoyed playing, singing, and dancing with herself so much. She returned to the tub and immersed her body in the warm water again. This time, she began to paddle the water with her legs as if she was swimming. She learned that from the Indian movie too. Then she began to throw the soap suds up into the air. After playing inside the tub for a long time, Rehana remembered she had to wash her clothes. She came out of the tub and went to the sink with the smaller mirror. She filled the sink with water and began to wash her clothes piece by piece. She first washed her top dress and then she cleaned her underdress too. After that, she took her pink bra and washed it, and lastly, she washed her small red underwear. When she finished washing her underwear, the naughty young Indian woman hung her wet clothes on the curtain rod above the tub. She knows that she has to wait inside the women's washroom until her clothes are dried up. Once again she began to dance and repeat her naughtiness all over again. This time she stimulated her body beyond her ability to control it. Relishing the rare moment of privacy, she sat on the edge of the empty tub and began to use her fingers and masturbate. She inserted two of her right-hand fingers inside her hairy vagina and she masturbated for a quite long time until she got sexually satisfied. What Rehana has done is more exciting than the hottest porn movie ever has been created. She had spent what seemed like a long time inside the washroom until the Cobra woman knocked on the door and shouted at her. She quickly put on her clothes and rushed out of the washroom. Her clothes are sticking to her body because they are only half dry. As a punishment for her unnecessary delay, the strict and deeply moral noble Saudi woman has not allowed her to wash the clothes of her little daughter or bathe Ifat. Moreover, she decided not to allow her to eat her meal as a punishment for her big mistake. Nevertheless, the scolding and punishment are nothing if compared to the other serious problems the new Indian maidservant is going to face soon in the house of her Arab masters. Rehana would not have removed her clothes, stood naked, spread her legs wide open and exposed her private parts, danced naked, fondled her breasts or washed her pink bra and red underwear while she was standing fully naked. Also, she would not have inserted her fingers into her pussy and gently masturbated if she knew that everything she has done is going to be filmed on tape. Tariq and Khalid had bought a surveillance camera, installed it inside the women's bathroom, and waited for their gorgeous and sexy Indian maidservant to take a bath. While Rehana was playing nude and exploring every inch of her naked body, the two teenage boys were sitting in another room watching her and masturbating too. They then uploaded the disgraceful video onto the internet on their YouTube page under the sensational title, "An Indian Film Actress Taking a Bath in a Tub in the Bathroom." Tariq and Khalid have not simply stopped secretly photographing their beautiful new maidservant bare naked. When they saw her prancing around in the nude, enticing and exciting them, they decided to go even further and get her. They know their mother locks her up in the storeroom every night, so they stole the key from their parents' bedroom, went to the local hardware store and made a duplicate copy. They then returned the key to their parents' bedroom without them ever noticing it was missing. Then the two wicked brothers came in the middle of the night, unlocked the big padlock of the storeroom's door, and walked in like two thieves who came to steal at night. They are carrying strong flashlights in their hands. The lovely Indian maidservant is sleeping when they come in. She is dead tired due to the 15 hours she spent working like a donkey in the huge mansion of her Arab masters. Even her little daughter is tired and sleeping like a little log of wood. The big brother put both hands on her mouth and pressed it hard. They do not want her to wake up in the middle of the night and scream in terror and wake up their strict mother. They know their deeply moral mother will beat them up and inform their father to beat them too. Moreover, they know their holy mother will kick out the lovely and sexy Indian woman whom they had already seen how hot she looked without her clothes. Rayhana woke up in terror, but she could not scream because her mouth was closed by the hands of Khalid. Then the smaller brother opened his iPad and showed her a porn video of her dancing and masturbating in the bathroom of the strict mother. Rayhana could not believe her eyes when she saw herself bare naked while doing all those shameful things in the bathroom of the strict Arab woman. She has just allowed her tears to fall like drops of rain on her cheeks and water her pillow while they are exposing the state of her extreme shock and broken heart. Then the two bad brothers began to touch her body everywhere. Rayhana understood what they wanted from her. She is scared that the two teenage boys might show the bad video to their dangerous mother and aged father if she does not allow them to touch her private parts. She anticipated that if she refused to give them what they wanted, she would lose her job and be sent onto the streets along with her little daughter. They even mentioned the words, "show mama," "show papa," and the police. Although she does not understand their language, those three names revealed to her what they would do if she refused their sexual advances. She expected that if she refused to allow them to have sex with her, they would either show the porn video to their father and mother, or send it to the Saudi police authority. She remembered Aslam Ali Khan informed her that the Saudi police authority in this Muslim country would stone to death any foreign woman who was caught doing immoral acts. She does not want to die and leave her small daughter all alone with those dangerous Arab men. For that reason, she agreed to marry the pimp Aslam on paper to avoid being accused of an adulterous relationship with him and go to prison and get killed. The two bad boys had already downloaded her porn-like video on their computer and then uploaded it onto the internet. Therefore, Rayhana is scared that the strict and morally deep Arab woman would beat her up and kick her out of her holy abode for the immoral pornography she has done inside the women's washroom. She remembered one of the strict laws the noble Arab woman told her she would not tolerate any immoral act or sexual behavior from her side. She expected even the good old man who brought her from India because she is a Muslim woman is going to take the side of his strict wife and ask her to leave his house and never return. Rayhana does not know the way back to Aslam's apartment. She does not have his apartment's address with her. She has no money to purchase air tickets to return to her country. She is totally at the mercy of her Saudi masters. She regretted what she had done in the women's bathroom. So, against her wishes, she allowed those two evil teenage sons to abuse her body and simultaneously rape her in the presence of her little daughter. But thanks God this time, the little daughter is sleeping on the small bed while those two demon-possessed sons are raping her mother on the solid floor of the storeroom. It is once again, in just 2 months, the innocent Indian maidservant got raped by 2 wicked Arab males at the same time, although this time her rape by 2 males is not as brutal and as painful as her previous rape by those 2 evil policemen in the desert. Still, she has shed rivers of tears for being abused and raped all over again. Moreover, this time she expected those 2 brothers would continue blackmailing and raping her as long as she stayed in their house. Also, she expected to become pregnant with an illegitimate baby because neither of the 2 sons had used a condom while raping her. Both of them have exaggerated inside her womb. In Bombay, no one had ever tried to blackmail her. She remembered that some rich Indian men tried to buy her body with money, but she always refused their money and their sexual advances, even though some had promised to give her tens of thousands of rupees. She threatened them with going to the police if they dared touch her. She even walked away from some jobs when their sexual harassment became unbearable. Outside of this Arab huge mansion, there is nowhere for her and her daughter to go. She is petrified by the Saudi police. The last thing she wants to experience again in this hellish Arab country is a repeat of her encounter with the police and the horrible experience of being raped and nearly beaten to death. Once she succumbed to the 2 brothers' evil demands, they figured their manipulation had worked as planned and decided the new, lovely Indian maidservant was now their female sex slave. They have even decided on their next visit to her storeroom. In the middle of the night, they would bring their video camera and shoot a porn film version of their sex with the beautiful and sexy Indian maidservant and show it to their friends and classmates at school. Chapter 54. The Abominable Sex Scandal. The Pakistani driver returned after 5 days, and the noble Arab woman, Mrs. Ahmed, called him to the kitchen and told him to translate for her what she was going to say to her Indian maidservant. She then supplemented her strict laws and rules and list of many heavy and hard chores for the Indian maidservant. Whatever she could not impart to Rehana during his absence, she more than made up for. She insulted her in front of the chauffeur, telling him not to leave one word out that she was saying. She told him to tell Rehana that she is a dirty, filthy animal and behaves as if she came straight from out of the jungle of India. Rehana cried as the chauffeur translated all the revilement, filthy insult words and derogatory remarks from the Cobra mistress. The noble Arab woman felt pleased with the great distress she was able to inflict on her maidservant, and now that her goal was accomplished, Mrs. Ahmed dismissed the Pakistani driver. She remained for some time with Rehana in the kitchen and forced her to do as many unnecessary hard chores as possible. The noble, holy, deeply moral, and strict Arab Muslim woman then abruptly marched out of the kitchen and left without telling her maidservant what to do next. Rehana knows that if the evil Saudi woman came back and found her sitting with her daughter in the kitchen doing nothing, she would shout at her and might even assault her physically and beat her up in front of her daughter Ifat. Therefore, she decided to go to the other rooms and start cleaning them all over again. She just wants to be busy doing something. She has already cleaned up all the rooms and hallways. She told her daughter to sit and wait for her in the kitchen. It is one of the new rules she learned that day through the Pakistani translator that her daughter is not to follow her from place to place all over the house. When the mother is not working in the kitchen, the daughter has to put it there and do some work too. The Cobra woman never showed any compassion toward the little girl Ifat either. She detests her the same way she hates her mother. She did not give her any of her son's old toys to play with or buy her any dolls. She did not promise or suggest she should go to school to get an education like her privileged noble sons. She even forced her to do menial tasks. When her mother left, Ifat sat on the floor of the kitchen, folded her legs and began to look blankly at the empty walls. With nothing to do to amuse herself, she hugged her legs and rocked back and forth, waiting for her mother to return to her. Rehana began her work down one of the long hallways. She thought that there was no one else in the house except Mrs. Ahmed. She expected that the always angry and strict Arab woman would be resting in her bedroom. Therefore, the maidservant has decided to clean every room except the room of the mother lion. She knows that if she dared step foot inside the cobra lioness's bedroom without her permission and oversight, she would be scolded and mercilessly beaten up. The cobra woman had already told her never to step foot inside her sacred bedroom without her permission or when she is not there. However, she gave her permission to enter all the other rooms in the house. She expressly told her to keep herself away from the rooms of her teenage sons when they were at home. She said she believes in the Arabic saying, "Keep the female away from the male as you keep the egg away from the stone." But if the righteous woman of Allah came to know the egg had already been broken by the stones of her teenage sons, then she might have killed her maidservant, who had enticed her good noble sons and caused them to commit adultery with her in the night. If she has seen the porn video of Rayhana, she might have beaten her and then handed her over to the police authority and gotten her stoned to death. Rayhana spent a short time cleaning the hallway, and then she began with the other rooms. She began with Khalid's room first. When Rayhana stepped inside Khalid's room, she remembered how the two juvenile boys had come to the storage room at night and showed her a porn video of her nude inside the women's bathroom and her naughty behavior while she was alone. Rayhana does not like the situation she has put herself in, but she is powerless to do anything about it. She hopes that the goodman of the house, who had spent a lot of money on her and her daughter, might intervene and stop his wife from treating her so badly and prevent his sons from continuously blackmailing and raping her. She has not seen her sponsor since the day he brought her to his house. She was surprised when the Pakistani chauffeur returned without her Saudi sponsor. She held her tongue, deciding not to ask him where his kafil was. Deeply engrossed in 1,000 thoughts, she finished cleaning up Khalid's room and went to Tariq's room. She pushed the door open without knocking and strode in, knowing that the two bad boys who raped her at night would be at school for several hours. She froze upon entering and her body became paralyzed. She felt as if her heart stopped and her mouth opened up in disbelief. For a few minutes, with her mouth agape, her eyes bulged as she took in the scene of the Pakistani chauffeur atop the noble and holy Arab lady. Both of them are buck naked on top of each other in Tariq's big bed. She averted her eyes in another direction and is met with a porn movie splashing across a 65-inch LCD TV screen. Her eyes have seen a young white girl sucking and licking a big phallus of a white guy. Both are completely buck naked, just like the Saudi wife and the Pakistani man. She could even see the black pubic hair of the fully visible and exposed. Even the pussy of the white girl is open and red. Her big breasts are like two small white soccer balls. She has extra large buttocks, but the Saudi wife has no pubic hair on her exposed private parts. She has neither big boobs nor large buttocks. Her naked, skinny body is flat from the front and from behind, as if she is a man. In the meantime, rooted to the floor, the astonished maidservant could neither advance nor retreat. She is shaking, sweating, and breathing loudly, as if her soul might come out of her body at any second. The strict Saudi wife, Mrs. Ahmed, has seen her first. She fired off a few Arabic words to her secret lover, which had the effect of making the Pakistani chauffeur jump off of her body and stand about face. Rayhana closed her eyes when she saw his male organ like a big stick shooting up in front of him. The greatly astonished maidservant has expected two things to happen to her now. Either the Pakistani would run towards her, catch her by the neck and strangle her to death, or the cobra woman would shout at her and kick her along with her daughter out of the house. As she gradually opened up her tightly squeezed eyes, nothing could have prepared her for the pleading faces of the two adulterers begging her for mercy. In the awkward silence that followed, with no violence, direct or implied, she counted her good fortune, turned on her heels, and fled for her life. She ran to the kitchen and sat near her daughter. Hugging her, she waited to see what their destiny had in store for them both. Shortly thereafter, the personal driver of Sheikh Ahmed came into the kitchen. Clothed, he looked vastly different. For the first time, Raihana came to know his name, Sabir Ibrahim Shah. Everyone in the family calls him Rafiq, and she thought it was his real name. Every Indian calls every Arab man in the world Rafiq, and every Arab calls every Indian man in the world Rafiq. We will not let this stupidity distract us from the serious issue at hand, which is the adulterous and scandalous affair between the so-called noble and strict woman Mrs. Ahmed and her husband's immoral chauffeur. However, the only thing we can mention in passing is that Rafiq in Arabic means a companion on a journey, in particular a long trip. Sabir Ibrahim Shah looked stunned. When he mentioned his full name, Raihana could hardly hear him. Then he sat on the floor and faced the wall. He could not look Raihana in the face. He told her he had done what she had seen him doing with the wife of his boss because he had no choice. If he refused to do that, he would lose his job. Raihana does not say a single word because she does not know what to say or do in such a situation. She just kept looking at him. She's still scared that he might attack her or kill her. Then he opened his mouth again and told her that most of the Arabs were doing the same thing with their foreign maidservants and menservants. If the servants refused to comply, they would be dismissed. Occasionally, they would be falsely accused of committing something bad and then suffer a lifetime of pain and imprisonment, beheading or stoning to death. Raihana began to weep. Her heart broke when she realized the price of refusing sex could cost a person his life in this Islamic holy land. Amidst her sobs, the ignoble woman quietly walked in, looking different in her some decent dress. Raihana has a flashback from the horrible way she appeared without her clothes. She is skinny and tall. She has nothing by way of face or body to attract a man, which explains why she had a porn movie playing to arouse her chauffeur. It was under these circumstances that Raihana walked in on them. Sheikh Ahmed had simply married the ignoble woman because her father is a very wealthy Saudi business tycoon. Marrying her is an investment that is figured well for business deals. Her name is Mastura, meaning a woman who protects her honor and that of her family. Today, she might as well have changed her name to Sharmuta, which means a whore wife or a prostitute in a brothel house. Raihana vividly remembered her first-day lecture on morality when Mastura told her that she hated immoral relations between the dirty foreign maidservant and one of the holy members of the noblest family in the kingdom of Tartarus. Hence, we are now more than adequately acquainted with the problem of the rich in third-world countries. They claim to be the most righteous and most holy people of God, and they look down on the rest of the world and view the poor as immoral, uncouth, uncultured, and very ill-mannered. Anyway, Mastura opened her contemptible mouth, but she spoke softly in whispers. Her loud, harsh voice and her rudeness have disappeared. She asked Sabir delicately if he had spoken to Raihana or not, and the amount of money she had asked for to keep her silent. Sabir has spoken to Raihana, but never broached the topic. Not daring to tell Mrs. Ahmed the words he had spoken to her, he turned again to speak to Raihana, telling her of Mrs. Ahmed's offer. Sabir's words took Raihana by surprise, so she just stared at him and glanced at the ignoble woman hiding behind him. Of course, Raihana has no clue that Mrs. Ahmed would be stoned to death in Saudi Arabia for such a transgression she has done with the foreign driver of her husband. Seeing Raihana keeping silent, the Pakistani driver made up her mind for her and told Maksura that the Indian maidservant had agreed to keep her lips sealed and would gratefully accept whatever money she was offered. I renamed Mrs. Ahmed Maksura because of her pitiful condition. She is a lioness and strutted around like the most moral woman on the face of the earth, and suddenly she has been broken with her pride in pieces. Maksora in Arabic means a broken female who got caught and exposed for what she is. With trembling hands, Mrs. Ahmed took her checkbook from her pocket, quickly wrote out a check, and put it in Rayhana's hand. Rayhana looked at the paper that the ignoble woman gave her without knowing what it represented. Sabir explained to her in Urdu that Mrs. Ahmed had given her a check and he could take her to the bank and open an account for her. Mrs. Ahmed decided to sweeten the deal, telling her secret lover to take Rayhana Khan and her daughter Ifat to the nearest bank to open an account for her and assist her in making the deposit. After that, she told him to take them to the supermall and let them buy whatever clothes they wanted and whatever dolls Ifat wished to have. He could then have the bills brought to her for reimbursement, and she would gladly pay for everything.